Woke up early in the morning, grabbed my coffee, now I'm roaring, ready to face the day and getting shit done in business.
Welcome to the Getting Shit Done in Business podcast by Chops Consulting. My name is Jacqueline Murtough. I'm an operations specialist with Chops Consulting. And today's guest, we have Tim Holliday with us. He is a business owner of a couple of different businesses, and I'll let him explain a bit what they are. But thanks, Tim, for joining us. Would you mind starting off telling us a bit about your background and about yourself?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me. My name's Tim Holliday. With my wife and I, we own a couple of things. Children's World Uniform Supply is our main business that has been around since 1964, and we specialize in providing school uniforms, and then also have educational supplies and some other things. And then inside our retail store, we are also contracted with the U.S. Post Office, so we operate a postal facility that takes care of not only our shipping, but anyone in the area that wants to come in and ship things. And then from that, we branched out about a dozen years ago. Even though we had been doing it for a whole lot longer, we branched out with another name called Business World Promo Supply. And with that, we do similar things for businesses and organizations. So business uniforms, and then pretty much anything branded, from trade show and home show type displays to awards and gifts, and pretty much anything that an organization or business would want to put their logo on.
Okay. Do you offer, just curious about what type of logo placement? Like, is it embroidery services, silk screening, ink, digital print? What do you got?
All the above.
All of the above. Okay. So literally full service.
Yeah, very much so. We partner with a bunch of manufacturing entities that really get great product for us, and they have all kinds of specialty ways to decorate things, and then some of those for things, especially apparel wise, we do in-house as well. So one way or another, we can do pretty much anything that anyone would need in any kind of format.
That's great. And for your distribution, you mentioned a little bit about having like a U.S. Postal Service doing some of your distribution. Is that your only method of distribution, or do you have a couple other branches and systems in place?
Well, we have a full-on retail store, which people can come in with the schools that we serve, bring their little ones in, and we actually help them get fitted with right size stuff and leave that day with their goods, which is a little different than pretty much what any other entity that does that type of thing tends to do. Most are, come in and we'll fit you, and then we'll order your stuff, and you got to come back and get it a couple weeks later or whatever. So that's one way of distribution. And then we do have a website where, today's day and age, you kind of have to have that for your business, where people can order online as well. And then we utilize the post office to, ship to them, which we ship most things priority mail. So pretty much wherever you are, you're getting it in 2 to 3 days at most, which is usually more economical and faster than the traditional like UPS or FedEx type shipping as well.
Great. Well, I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? If everybody wants that like instant gratification. So if you can go into the store, fantastic. You get that experience, but to be able to like have it shipped out to you in less than a week with international shipping as well is fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, we're maybe not quite as fast as Amazon with drone delivery and that kind of thing, but we're pretty close.
Pretty close. I'll take that from a private company over the big beast of Amazon. I think that's a good start. I'm going to just pivot into the next question we have for you is, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced specifically in your industry, either with the children's uniform branch or with the general branding endeavors?
Well, and I would say both sides of our businesses were, of course, really affected with COVID. We gear up way ahead of time for back to school. We typically actually start that process in about November of the year before the school year. Okay. So for us, when COVID came out, it wasn't that we didn't have product, it was that the kids weren't going to school. So that was a little tough to work through and things on that side. But at the same time, on the other side of our business with the business world type things, supply chain there was, of course, a disaster because so many places, they had workers not working, factories shut down, and everything else. So it was very difficult to source a lot of items. And of course, we pivoted and, we sold a lot of logoed face masks and things like that. That, frankly, if I never have to sell a logoed face mask again and go through COVID, I'd be more than happy with that. But it was a
We can all
way.
agree.
Yeah, right. But it was a good need, and it was a good way that you could still do some promotion in a way that was effective at the time. And
Everyone's looking for a mask.
well, right. Everyone was looking for a mask, and we did different styles of those that had logos right on them, so people could tell what they were. And some of them were for businesses, some of them were for schools. When the schools went back in, they had all the kids wearing, instead of just a logoed polo shirt, they had maybe a polo shirt on and a face mask, and those type of things. So that was a good pivot for us. Along the same way, a lot of people were working from home then, and we did a lot of gifting items. Companies would send their
Okay.
folks things at home, and some of it was practical stuff, like maybe lights for when they were on Zoom and stuff, so that they were lit up a little better,
Yeah.
things like that. And then other stuff was just fun stuff, maybe different types of snacks or whatever, logoed cookies, or and things like that. So that was kind of the fun part of that time. But
Yeah.
we, like everybody else, are glad that's behind us and we're back to kind of normal. Some of those things have continued for sure, but some, like the face mask, again, hopefully we never have to do again.
Fingers crossed, right? Fingers
Yes.
crossed we don't have to go through there again.
Yes.
And another question, like in your industry, how do you stay updated on like the latest trends? So obviously with COVID, you pivoted a bit, but prior to COVID or after COVID, what other ways have there been trends within your industry that you have either adopted or pivoted to avoid?
Yeah, great question, and that's something that I think is super important, is to stay on top of things, especially when you have like a smaller business, because one of the advantages of being kind of small is you're not turning the giant ship. It doesn't take forever to change direction or adopt a new way of doing things, or new technology or new product offering. And I think what has worked well for us with that is staying up on industry news, whether that be, simple things like emails, or industry emails or blog things, going to trade shows, and seeing what's out there and what's new, and the education that comes with that. And we've kind of always believed in that, and have backed it up with what we've kind of done with our credentials. Both my wife and I have all the same credentials, because we've went through all the same training. We're certified master retailers. We both have Master of Advertising Specialty Information designations, which is essentially a master's degree equivalent in the promotional items. And that's everything from the decoration methods that you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
to all the different types of products and how they apply here and there, even all down to the green side of things. Hey, here's products that are more eco-friendly in different ways,
Right.
and even the packaging and all that.
Definitely a
And
trend moving in
oh
that
my
direction.
gosh. Yeah, and it was funny, because when we went through the Massey designations like that, it was a number of years ago. In green stuff, then you talked about it a little bit, and there were certainly some people who looked for things. Hey, I want to be eco conscious, and those kind of things. But that the pendulum has definitely swung, and there's more and more interest in those things now. Like, hey, can we do something besides plastic, and can we use something that's reusable, and and even some of those things, like, but again, back to the COVID times, another thing that I think a lot of people learned with that is reusable water bottles and stuff, because hey, I don't want to share stuff with whatever, or have this chance of what, I want to have my own. And it may be better than going and buying the 24 pack of plastic bottles that you're just throwing away all the plastic as soon as you finish one.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, if you can hang on to something and you keep using it and it has a logo on it, there's also that brand recognition that comes with it, because you keep seeing it, and everyone else around you will see it as well. So
Absolutely.
in that world of things being branded, I start to see a lot more. I mean, Chops, we do it as well. We have our own, branded notebooks and pens, things we give out to clients, things that we've given out to staff members. Coffee mugs. I wish I had one right now, but otherwise I'd show it. But we do have like our own, and I remember during COVID, like one of my employers at the time had sent me like a cozy blanket that had, the logo on it and my department name, and believe it or not, it had my initials on it. So like they were
Yep.
all individualized. And I thought that was such a thoughtful gift for something that you're just working at home.
Exactly. Yeah, and along those same lines, one of the things that we came up with actually pre-COVID um, was we took because traditionally in the promotional products world, it used to be, well, hey, if you want this, you got to order 100 of them,
Right.
or some big number, and we have taken a lot of time and curated a entirely separate part of our website that is just what we call single item gifts. So you can
Nice.
find like the blanket you described, and you
Yeah.
can order one of those and you can personalize it, or if you have a department of 10 people or whatever, you can do 10 of them. You don't have to do 100 of
The
anything.
large scale orders.
Exactly.
So curious about a project like that. When you were
Yep.
looking at conceptualizing and building out that idea and then making actual like its own little storefront part of your website and its own service system, what pieces went into that kind of project? And then what were the deliverables that really showed you it was a successful project?
Sure. Well, originally it came about, gosh, like I say, pre-COVID, so probably 6 or so years ago.
Before the
Um,
curve.
yeah, before that, and the reason we kind of thought of it was, we kept getting these situations just like we were describing, like, hey, I've got somebody that I want to do something special for as a gift or a retirement thing or whatever, and we'd have to go and research the industry again and find out what our options were that you could do something with low or no minimums
Yep.
and things like that. So after kind of doing more and more of that research, it was like there's got to be a way to make this easier. So that's kind of where the thought came out to, well, let's just make a whole separate website that just focuses on these products, and that way, yeah, customers can go browse it on their own, but for us too, we can just point right to it and not have to go, find, well, who can make that blanket or whatever. We
Right. So it
got
becomes
it
like an
right now.
internal catalog of products as well as external for your clients.
Yeah, and very much so. And we still use it like that all the time. I point people to it if they want to look at things. Otherwise, one of the things I do in general is kind of help people sort through all the stuff, because depending on whose number you believe in the industry, there's somewhere between about 800,000 and a million different products in our product offering. So when I give people all the time, well, how much does that cost? Yeah, I'm probably not going to be able to recite that off the top of my head because my head ain't that big. But same thing goes, it's really easy for people to look online and go, oh, that looks like a cool product, but you don't know if that product is the best manufacturer of that item, or hey, here's
Gotcha.
a similar product and this manufacturer produces only really quality stuff. Or, even beyond that, what are you trying to do and who are you trying to give this to? And
Right.
because maybe the product you're looking at is a great product, but not for what you're trying to do. And that's where I can kind of come in and say, look, let me help you figure out what you're trying to do and figure out the best way to do it so you can spend your money in the right way and get a good return on it.
I think that's a really great kind of way to approach the customer service side. And not only that, but if you get them into like a better quality product, I'm assuming that it probably costs a little bit more, but you also build that relationship. Now they trust you when they get the product and it's good quality, it lasts, it looks good with the branding on it, etc. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I know in my experience, when I have a company that does me solid the first time, I will definitely go back. Do you find you get a lot of repeat business? Like, are you able to track those kind of things in your customer service system?
Yes, for sure. And to be honest, it's very much like you just described. I'll do something for somebody, and once they see, okay, wow, that was easy, and you got me good quality stuff, they tend to come back with, okay, well, here's my next project, and
Yeah.
things like that. And then, to be honest, I have customers I've worked with for so long, they don't even ask price. They don't do any of that. They know I'm going to take care of them. So they're like, look, I have this coming up. Do you have any ideas or, whatever? And then we just kind of run down the road from there.
Well, that's good. I appreciate that side of support when you're working with businesses because I've been in the position where I have to do all that kind of ordering. random things that are not our normal supply things, and they're one-offs, or they're one-offs one time, but then we come up with other events that we could come up with things for, and we fight for some budget. Okay, we got some money, let's buy some fun stuff.
Sure.
So I've been in the other side of the seat, and so when I have companies that are like proactively wanting to work with me and make the product that they're going to get me better, I'm all on board for that. So I'm sure your customers will come back to you quite often. But I had another question.
Sure.
So we're talking about like segmenting your audience based on like type of product, etc. they want. How do you know in your like web traffic, in your CRM system, how do you know where your clients are coming from or what they're clicking through? Do you do any sort of backhouse tracking or following to look at your metrics on that kind of traffic?
Not so
and
much
conversion orders?
like metrics looking from the website and things like that, because to be honest, most of our clients, that's not how they find us.
Okay.
Pretty much I can say without a shadow of a doubt, the majority of new clients that we get are referred to us or heard of us from another client and that sort of thing. Yeah, every once in a while we will get somebody who, hey, I found your website and, can you help me with this or whatever, or even order something online.
Okay.
My response to most of that is, look, if you want to, if you like looking for stuff, by all means, dig through the website, maybe it'll give you some ideas or whatever. But, again, I'd almost rather have that conversation and say, okay, so, what are you trying to do? Who's your audience? What's the end goal here?
What's the goal? Yeah.
Exactly. Because those things really can steer the boat in very different directions. And somebody just finding things on a website, that tends to not work very well that way on my site or anybody else's site,
Okay.
to be honest. Which is where a lot of times, like if I have somebody that goes and finds something on my website, whether it's a new customer or existing customer, I may come back to them and still ask questions rather than just
Right.
order it, or even say, hey, I saw you ordered this, but you know what? There's something very, very similar. I think it'd be better, and here's why. And
Here's why.
yeah, it just all comes back to that, trying to provide that personal service to make the difference and to make it easier and make them hopefully, maybe not always save money, like you said, because sometimes the product is more expensive. But
Usually.
yeah, but in
But
the
you get
long
what you
run,
pay for
well, yes, you 100% get what you
in
pay
life.
for,
I mean, just
especially in
good
this
life lesson.
industry, because there's a lot of garbage out there. There really is. And in fact, I tell the story all the time about the lowly pen. Even in today's digital world, everybody still uses pens on a daily basis, right? So pens are a good item for lots of businesses and organizations have. And you can go online and you can find a really cheap pen, but when that pen blows up in somebody's hand and gets ink all over their hand or their shirt or
Clothes.
whatever,
Mm-hmm.
the advertising you've just made is not the kind of impression that you want for your business.
I'm like, ooh, cheap pen that just exploded in my expensive handbag. Not impressed.
Exactly. And then they start thinking, well, if they were cheap on the pen, is their product or service going to be cheap to me or whatever? It's terrible. For the little bit more money you could spend to have something that's really quality and writes nice and it won't blow up and won't do that, a million times worth it. And not everybody gets that, but
if I go to an office and they've got a nicely weighted pen that even has a logo on it, I'm like, can I take this one? It's amazing.
Right.
That's how they end up in the bottom of my purse all the time.
Well, and think about that, though. You just described the best thing that you want to have happen when you've branded something, right? You want people to want it because when they're going to want it. They're not going to, now if somebody asks you, hey, can I borrow a pen? And you pull that one out, you're going to be like, okay, when you're done, you're giving that back to me.
You're watching them.
Right.
Well, and exactly. And honestly, those are the kind of pens, if you are doing a pen promotion to any of our watchers out there, get the good pen. Spend the extra cents, or half $1, and buy the one that's got a heavy weight to it and a nice feel and writes smooth. And those are the pens that people want to keep on them. So maybe look at your logo more often.
Yep. Very well put.
Thank you. So looking at your industry, I mean, you said that you and your wife, running it together, you both have the same certifications, background, and education. What would you recommend for someone who wants to get started in the promotional industry itself? Like, how would you recommend someone start? I mean, I know there's ways through Amazon, other suppliers, but
Yeah, I think whether you're in retail or pretty much anything, or, I was going to say retail or the promo industry or anything else, find where the information and education is coming from in your industry. Like in the promotional industry, there's a couple of organizations that are kind of the industry leaders. They do lots of research and they provide lots of data and
yeah.
education and things like that, and we belong to one of them,
Okay.
and we take all their information that comes out, literally, that they have a daily newsletter that comes out with happenings in the industry, and
Okay.
whether it's a company offering something new, or whether it's moves in a company, or the sustainability thing, or you name it, they come out with all that. And it's a lot, but you need to kind of stay up, on what's going on. And especially when you're first getting into it, you got to be a sponge, and you just have to really dive in and learn everything you can, because it's really easy to get excited and, hey, I'm going to start, I'm going to do something. But if you don't know the basics and the background and the things of your industry, it's probably not going to go very well, versus if you have that, and if you have a source for, continuing education, and ways to keep yourself kind of at the front of that, instead of just sitting back going, oh yeah, I did that a whole bunch of years ago, and I
Right.
read that. Well, most businesses, things today are very different than they were a year ago, 5 years ago, whatever. And
Very
you
true.
have to dive in and stay up with that. Otherwise, you're going to get passed and left behind too.
Okay, well, that's good advice. I think just in general across any business, really, that's
Right.
a kind of a good mindset to go into. Um, how do you see the future of your industry evolving? Is there any kind of trends that you've got your eye on, or ways that you may be considering to pivot, or maybe there's projects in the work that are a little secretive at the moment?
Well, I would say on our retail side of things, again, being small, I think, and being willing to pivot and take some chances with stuff, maybe not your entire business, but, hey, I can, let me try this different product line, or let me try this whole different, part, or whatever. We do that a lot. And, I'd be lying if I said that every one of those decisions has been great, because some of them have been real clunkers, and then the same thing, we got into a branch of our business a few years ago. A year into it, we knew it wasn't working. So in year two, we exited it. And those are things that, as a small business, you can do a whole lot easier than a big business can, because a big business, has to have 47 meetings, and put all this
Right.
together with all these people, and a year and a half goes by before you can even get a yes or no to anything. And meanwhile, either you missed the opportunity, or you've wasted so much money to get out of it, because nobody can decide what they're doing. It doesn't work. So I think those are important. And certainly we've experimented with, like I say, different things on the retail side, because things change. Like we offer gifty stuff now, and we've done that for 2 or 3 years. And it's been great, because, while the parents are in maybe school uniform shopping, and we've had toys and educational stuff where the kids maybe walk out with something interesting. Well, now maybe mom or dad's finding something cool they need to
True.
leave with too. So that I'd say is kind of the trending on that side. And then on the other side of the business with the promo stuff, I think we've kind of hit on them already, but just to kind of consolidate that part of the conversation, certainly the lower quantities in gifting and personalized items, huge trend. And then kind of almost as big to that is the whole, eco-friendly kind of, pieces and even packaging. There's one of our manufacturing partners just started up earlier this year, a new company, and everything they have is carbon neutral, which is
That's amazing.
amazing. And then even to the point, the packaging of all the items has second uses. So instead of just getting a box and throwing it away, or hopefully recycling it or whatever, they have packaging that can be used for other things as well that, technically didn't cost anything more, and it's kind of a bonus item that came with the piece. And I think that's one of the coolest things I've seen, and hopefully a trend that'll continue in our industry for sure.
That is amazing, though. I think that having companies that realize that we need to move more towards eco-friendly, more than single-use items. Like when I do get boxes, yes, I recycle most, but I do use some of them again. They have secondary lives where I use them again as a box.
Sure.
But I think companies being creative in that way is a great way to pivot in what you can offer to your clients. And, specifically if you're doing like business to business, there's a lot of businesses that like to promote that they are doing what they can, including all these other little initiatives, right? So that's a great sort of kickback to the community that way that businesses can dive into as well.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of the flour company that used to sell they sell everything in sacks. And so they changed back in the war times to pretty prints because they realized people were actually using those bags to make dresses or children's clothes. That was, 100 years ago, they were doing that. And so it's great to see that, trends don't change, just come back around. Okay.
Yeah, very much so. And you hit on something that's interesting about businesses trying to do what they can to make that difference in things, and that's something we've taken to heart ourselves. And we we do the same thing you mentioned. Like every box that comes in, we're going to find a use for that box, hopefully, so it doesn't have to go into recycling. And then, okay, worst case, if it does, it's going to get recycled. But we do that with everything. Like the packing material, we save the packing material and reuse it, on outgoing shipping. Yeah. When we print papers, if it's something we don't need to keep, we turn around and print the backside of it for something else. We recycle everything we can, and from that, we've got some very nice recognition too from the state with our recycling efforts, and
Awesome.
Actually we've been recognized with a couple of awards that have been pretty cool too. So there are benefits to it for sure, besides just feeling like, hey, you need to do your part.
Yeah. Well, I think if every business kind of took that mentality and not necessarily do it for the awards or the clout, but do it for the, I'm not going to have to buy shipping material again. Like, let's just face it, you're not going to buy shipping material if you're reusing it. You are paying the label to organize it. You're going to pay the labor for that. But there's like opportunity costs of we might spend a little bit more here, but we're going to save there. So,
Right.
Really looking at that and then looking at the investment of, okay, if we go eco-friendly, it perhaps may cost a little bit more now. But long run, we're doing our part. And so there's always an opportunity cost in everything we do, whether it's in personal life or business. But I do implore like all businesses to kind of look at things in that regard. I love to put together business cases myself when I'm trying to convince clients to make changes. And then they're very, we've always done it that way. This way, okay, well, let's look at how you've done it and what the costs are. And costs are time, money, labor, wear and tear on your equipment. There's lots of things that go into what those costs are.
Sure.
And then looking at benefits, right? And then changing their mind. That personally, working with our clients is something that we like to do at Chops, is challenge we've always done it this way.
Right. Now
there's always room for growth if you change.
Right, exactly. Now that's awesome, and even the little things, like when you were talking there about hey, we've always kind of done it this way. One of the things we changed a while back was even in our break room, instead of having plastic forks and paper plates and and those type of things, we have actual dishes and silverware and stuff, and we wash them, and we have napkins that we wash and reuse.
Oh wow, paper.
That. So yeah. Napkins. Right. And at the end of the day, it was an expense at the beginning, and we have to wash them, so there's some, water and whatever. But I mean, just think about how much we've saved from going in the garbage from all that stuff, year over year.
We think about let's just say 2 silverware sets a day, 10 staff, add that for a year.
Right.
And what that cost is versus the cost of your water, electricity, running a dishwasher, and buying all of your stuff to start. And of course, having a rotation of chores. There's probably a chore wheel in your office somewhere, or it's someone's job to take care of the kitchen maintenance. But that being said, pivot, change, growth, it will cost a little bit to do. But I think just in all areas of business, there's ways to make that become profitable, hopefully in the short term.
Right.
Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. But I do appreciate you taking the time today, Tim. I have one last question. I'd love to ask this one of all of our guests.
Sure.
Who has been a significant influence on your professional journey? If you think about throughout your career, is there one person or a specific type of relationship that has been a good influence on you?
There's been a number of them for sure. and in fact, a while back, somebody had asked me something similar to that. They're like, "Oh, well, who are you most like that you've, been with or whatever?" And I said, I thought about it for a minute, and I said, I think I'd like to think that I'm kind of a patchwork of a bunch of people that I've met over time that have influenced me and taught me things in different ways. I mean, going back to, my first real job, I was in banking, and I worked for a guy for a long time who was just so smart about, how to treat customers and how to, kind of go that extra mile that for you really doesn't cost anything but makes that difference for the customer. Even up to, to now, we subscribe to, well, actually to two different kind of industry experts, one on the promotional side and one on the
Okay.
retail side. And the one of them, I would even say, outside of our professional relationship and everything that we've learned kind of in the mentor mentee kind of thing, I'd say is actually a really good friend because I can pick the phone up and say, "Hey, I got this really weird scenario. Can I run this past you and get your thoughts?" And to have somebody who has been around the block more times than I have, and to be able to come back and say, gosh, well, here's maybe what I would do and give you a perspective on that is priceless.
Okay. Yeah, I think that that's, key for anyone in your career. If you have that sounding board, whether it's one friend, two friends, a couple of mentors, coworkers that you trust dearly, that you can, vent to, bounce ideas off of, brainstorm with. I think that that's always key. And I do recommend that if you're not doing that with somebody right now in your career, reach out, start building those networks. Like you said, it took a village, so to speak. There was lots of people along your career path that helped you gain your skill set, your knowledge, your understanding, experience, etc. All those things that go into, leading a business. So I do appreciate that. That's great to hear that, you've had that long-standing friendship that you've been able to just pick the phone, pick their ear, and have them actually give you sound advice or just, ear to listen to.
Right. For
I always
sure.
ask people sometimes when they're venting, do you want solutions or do you want support?
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to guide how I respond because I'm a very solutions-driven person. Hence my
Sure.
role as an operations specialist. I go right into, well, how can we fix it? Not necessarily somebody needs right away. So I've learned in a lot of my relationships, professional and personal, solutions or support. But having that sounding board is always key. Are there any last final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience, Tim, before we wrap up the podcast? It's been great to have you on today.
Gosh, no, it's been fantastic for sure, and certainly appreciate the opportunity to do this, and hopefully it's helpful to the listeners.
All right. Well, I'm just going to note in our, you'll be able to find our podcast on any streaming services as well as on YouTube and on our Chops Consulting website. Tim will have your contact information posted in the episode as well for businessworldpromo.com and childrensworlduniform.com.
Teamwork hard, let's make progress. Getting shit done in business.